It meant that too many horses were bred. Too much money was borrowed to breed them, and now too many people were trying to sell a surplus of horses to people who didn't want them. In short, horsemen, as thoroughbred breeders and owners fancy themselves, had bet their farms and were losing them. Now there were more than 300 farms for sale, a 50% increase over the previous year in the 4 counties that make up horse country in Kentucky: Fayette, Woodford, Bourbon, and Scott. The banks had bailed out on the industry as well. Loans to breed and buy horses had dropped 60% to about $400 million from an estimated $1 billion in 2007. The tight credit took its toll. The number of mares bred nationally, like Little Princess Emma, had dropped 35%, and the number of stallions standing stud, like Pioneer of the Nile, had fallen by nearly 40%. Horse players, the gamblers who were the lifeblood of the sport, were keeping their money in their pockets too. The North American handle, or amount bet on races, was $11.1 billion, down 30% from the $15.4 billion wagered in 2007. These were scary times, but it mattered little on the March morning Pioneer of the Nile sauntered into the breeding shed at the Vinery for his appointment with Little Princess Emma. It was spring in the bluegrass, the most hopeful time of the year for breeders and owners. It was the time when a brief, often expensive interlude between a mare and a stallion might create a home-run horse. The kind of foal that 4 springs from now might run away with the Kentucky Derby, prevail in the Preakness Stakes, and capture the Belmont Stakes to sweep the 3 classic races that make up American horse racing's Triple Crown. Only 11 horses had previously managed to capture thoroughbred racing's Holy Grail, and the last, Affirmed, did so more than 3 decades ago in 1978. Why so few? Theories abound, but the bottom line is that it takes an exceptional horse and a fair amount of good fortune to navigate a 20-horse field throughout the 1.25-mile Kentucky Derby course, a distance few are bred for. In addition, the Derby winner must travel to Baltimore after the toughest race of his life, and with only 2 weeks' rest, and defeat another dozen or so, many of them fresh challenges, in the Preakness Stakes, a 1 3/16 race. Finally, 3 weeks later in New York, the Derby and Preakness champ must pass the test of the champion, as the Belmont Stakes is known, a grueling 1.5-mile marathon against a field of fresh, accomplished horses, the top finishers from the Derby, who have had 5 weeks of rest, as well as a new cast of accomplished rivals that haven't been chewed up on the road to the Triple Crown. In short, 3 cities, 3 tracks, 3 of the longest distances that horses will ever run are compressed into a 5-week schedule. This pursuit of history begins with each breeding season in barns like this one, with their polished mahogany stalls and shiny brass fittings and rubberized floors. Even if Zayat, or the multitudes of dreamers like him, were unable to conjure up visions of a historic horse, a fast, pedigreed one that was able to pass that trait on to babies would do just fine. Better perhaps than breeding Triple Crown champs like Secretariat, Seattle Slew, and Affirmed, was coming up with the next Stormcat. He had been more than a home-run horse. He'd been a jackpot horse. Stormcat was modestly talented on the racetrack, but a legend in the breeding shed. In his peak breeding years, he commanded $500,000 per mating, an act that he performed up to 150 times or more a year. On the racetrack, he won 4 of his 8 starts, including the Young America Stakes, a Grade 1 or top-rated race. However, in the 1985 Breeders' Cup Juvenile Championship, Stormcat suffered a chipped knee, finishing second to a rival named Tasso. He was never the same on the racetrack and was retired after 2 more races. Those are not the results he is remembered by, though. Instead, Stormcat is revered for his $1 million pedigree, which continued to throw off hundreds of millions in cash long after he was retired from stallion duties in 2008 at age 25. Stormcat